Okay, so I'm going to do a little review of our vision at Midtown Church. Ultimately, our vision is to see people come to Jesus Christ. I've got a little bit of ring up here. That's our vision, right? It's not like we want to have a building that can seat 5,000 people, because right now, throughout the world, there are mega churches that sit empty. Buildings that sit empty, that are no longer full of people. That can't be our vision, because those are physical, tangible things that come and go. Our vision has to revolve around people coming to know the Lord and growing deeper in their relationship. Two main nuggets in how we operate our vision and how it's worked out in Midtown. Two main ways. And I have labored to make sure that we don't lose focus by drifting into peripheral things that we could do and spend a lot of energy on with a church this size and this young. Two main things: worship service and community groups. All right, they have different purposes in getting us to our vision. Our worship service is designed for you as a believer to come into the presence of God, to glorify Him, and to worship together as a larger body of believers. Also, second to that, in our worship service, if there is someone here that does not know the Lord, we hope that the opportunity is placed before you that you could receive the Lord here, be it at home, but you are given the information, you're given the truth to know what is the way to salvation. Okay, our worship service and our community groups, the second nugget of our vision of how it operates. We break in from a large group setting into smaller groups. And this is where ministry really happens. This is where we get sweaty together. This is where we do the work. This is where we pray. This is where we fellowship. This is where we talk about each other's struggles, if you want to call them, issues, pains, hurt, and we minister to each other. So there's a bonding that happens in our community groups that tightens the family of Midtown closer together. That cannot and does not happen on a Sunday morning in a worship service. It can't. Even though we're a smaller church, we're still a size that we just can't get to know each other at a level that our community groups are designed to get to know each other at. And so we have those two main nuggets, right? The worship service, community group. So Greg, we have Kid Town. What about that? Well, that is a branch off of a worship service. Okay, that could shut down today, and we would still do what we're doing. We are not dependent on Kid Town operating for us to do what we do. Now, Kid Town is an incredible ministry that we have decided we want to put eggs in that basket. We want to focus on, make sure it's done well in order to equip us on Sunday morning to reach our vision. We do not have a youth group. That's not because we don't like teens around here. That's just because where the Lord has put us. We don't have the ability to have a youth group because God has not called the right person to lead that yet. But one day if we do, then that will also be another secondary nugget to how we operate and do our vision. Even soul care, as much as I've been talking about it for the past 8 weeks, I think my voice is cracked there. You might have to get used to it because I've had a sore throat for a while. So I've gone through that stage of life, just to let you know. But our soul care ministry is also a secondary, as much as I believe it's going to be healthy for our church, a secondary nugget, if I could call it that, to our two main nuggets, our worship service and our community groups. Because really, soul care is a ministry that's designed to do really what you're doing in your community groups, but at an intensive level, to help just really usher the Word of God into your presence at critical moments in your life. Okay, so two big things. Okay, so I told you last week, I was thinking maybe I shouldn't use the word sales pitch because that really could rub people the wrong way, but I did. So I tossed it out there. Today is my day. The one time out of the year, last year, about a year ago, we started community groups. There was some skepticism as would it last? Would they work, guys? And they're flourishing. 60-70% of Midtown is in community groups. To me, that's an incredible number that shows health at a deeper level in our church, a desire inside of you to not just come to church on Sunday morning, but to invest at a deeper level in each other's lives. That's awesome. All right, and so today is that one day out of the year that I want to focus on community groups. Our community group's full of babies that do that all day long, and we love it. Guys, our cry room, that's a secondary thing, but we have it in order to minister to families with young kids. So today is my day that I put in front of you an argument, whatever you want to call it, a push for you to join a community group if you're not in one, or to remind you why you are in a community group. And so Luke 10, interesting passage maybe you might think to go to stir up this conversation, but I want to dig into it. I want to pull out 7 points as to why community groups are important to the Christian and to the church. But maybe you're sitting here right now and you think what I used to think, and that is, Greg, I'll sit through this one, but ultimately I'm not going to join a group. I'm going to check out, because it's not my personality. It's just not what I do. I don't like to get close to people. I don't like to smell them. I don't like to talk about their issues. I don't want them to see my issues. I don't want them to smell me. I mean, regardless of what it is, I'm just not going to join a community group. Okay, and I get that. I do, because I got this personality that, like, I could be an extrovert, like, 1 second, and the next second be a complete introvert and, like, just get away from me. And, it's just like a switch that flips, and there's often times that I just don't want to connect. I just don't want to sit with someone and help carry burdens. I don't want to talk about my problems, And plus, let's be real. Community groups, when you get with a group of people like that at a deeper level, you have awkward moments. There's just awkward stuff that happens. Like maybe I don't know. Maybe you're a guy that hugs everybody. Now, if I walk into a community group and you're a guy and you come up and hug me, like, I'm so glad you're here. That's awkward. Right? I don't want to go through that. I don't want to come back because that's awkward to me. But now I'm not dissing the guy who hugs, because that's part of who he is. And part of community groups is learning to love and embrace each other for who we are. But that's an awkward moment. Or maybe you're the person that when you do dinners, either you just can't afford to put dinner together, or you bring bread and butter hoping that no one realizes your financial state is affecting what you can bring, and you just come and you eat. That might be awkward to you. But our community groups are designed, as we'll talk about, to help each other in moments of needs. So you come and you mooch. Well, no, let's get rid of that word. You come and you're blessed for a week, for a night, and you can eat a meal. Your family can be taken care of, because that's how God's economy works. He works through believers helping other believers out. Maybe you're the dude that's late all the time, like always. Or maybe you're the one who leaves after dinner because you always got something going on. That's awkward for the group. What do we do? Do we vote them off the island? Or do we do we work with them? What do you do? What if you got the child that's always crying? Or prayer request time. Anyone got prayer requests? No. It's 10 weeks in a row. No prayer requests. We're all doing good. Or who wants to pray? We've been there. So we find the holiest person in our terms in the room. It's like, you're on. And oddly enough, it's not me. It's usually not me. I was kind of scratching my head. We just have awkward moments in community groups. And guys, and that's okay, because when you get down and you do life on life with people, you get to see people's quirks, right? And I don't want my quirks to show. I don't want, this is on, me and God, we have this debate all the time. I said, God, there's a lot of things I like to be in life. As a pastor, there's a lot of things I'd like to do different. I'd like for my mind to slow down. I would like not to see the big picture all the time. I would like not to always be moving towards something. And I get exhausted trying not to be those things. And finally, I said, God, you realize who you put in this position, right? And in his awkward moment of silence, he said, yes. And I said, okay. So I said, I'm just going to be who I am. The church can live with me. My community group can live with me. Guys, I was wondering if my community group would realize this. I hid in my bedroom this week from my community group. And you all are here, and they're shaking their heads. We noticed. My daughter was sick. I was sick. Hey, She was teething. And we watched Doc McStuffin in my bedroom the entire night. And then we ran out of videos and we did other stuff. I got quirks, and I'm sitting back there like, they're going to judge me. I'm like, nah, forget it. My group gets it. My group gets it. And guys, this is the fabulous thing. I've been wanting to use that word for a while, fabulous. Fabulous thing about church is when we get it, when we understand the love of Christ, all of a sudden your quirks are cool. All of a sudden you become okay in my mind, in my sight. All of a sudden I can live with you. In fact, your quirks become my quirks. And I feel more at ease to let my quirks be exposed because of this, because we understand what grace and mercy is all about. And even deeper than that, your sin becomes more okay in my presence. Can I say that, right? Your sin can be okay in my presence. I mean, right? That's one of our big hurdles in our walk with the Lord is we have the ability to pick out other people's faults before they see them, and to get to a point where we're okay with the fact that we can see that and not run them out, we begin to understand. And we'll talk more about that because that may stir up some questions. But I want to get to my 7 reasons as to why we do community groups here at Midtown. And I'm going to put it up front. If you're not involved in one, would you throughout this service just be praying, God, show me if I am to be involved in a group, and if so, which one? Okay, I say which one. We have flyers on the back table that list out the groups. Most of them are open. My group is pretty slammed. We got about 18, 20 in our group, but half of that's kids, so we're pretty full. But we have a new group, Tom and Cindy, which they'll come up later and talk to us. That's starting, and they're West Melbourne. They're looking for people to join their group. So be praying, God, would you reveal to me if I'm to join a group? Real quick, we have 6 groups as of today that'll be going on. Like I said, Tom and Cindy are starting a group. We have a Bible study that meets Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, led by Palmer and Rose Style. And they do a wonderful job just walking through the scriptures. It's a little bit different than our normal structure of community group. We have Terry, who leads a community group at 9:30 Sunday morning. The Shelleys are actively leading one, and my family's leading one. And if I'm missing someone, I'm sorry. Joyce, you're just so small. I just overlook you all the time. Joyce, but see, like me and Joyce, we compete because you always taking the new people, and I'm like, you don't leave us with nothing but the stragglers. I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. We'll take the stragglers. So guys, I think our church is in a healthy place when it comes to community groups. But the first reason out of 7 is that from Luke 10, we see that this is the Lord's way of doing things. Okay, we got a group of 72 people, and we go to, I don't got the verse, I think it's verse 1. It says, after this, the Lord appointed 72 others. If you're reading that in your Bible and you read 70, there's a discrepancy between how to translate that. 70, 72 others, either way. And he sent them on ahead of them 2 by 2. Okay? I asked myself, why, God? Why that structure? Why not send them all out as one group, right? A horde of 72 people running into a village, conquer the village, go to the next. Right? Victory in mass numbers. In fact, if we looked at our books and we had everybody here, we'd have about 70, 72 people in our church. So that would be like Midtown. You go out as a group, do an outreach project, and check it off the list, and we're done. Or Jesus could have said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break you all off into single individuals, and all 72 of you are going to go different ways. And you're going to do twice as much as my original plan of splitting you down 2 by 2 by going into 72 different villages, cities, towns, whatever. But he doesn't. All right? He chooses to send them out 2 by 2. Okay, my first thought to this is, well, Greg, our community groups are bigger than 2 of us. Well, that's fine. The point here is Jesus is breaking down a larger crowd and putting them into smaller groups, smaller numbers. I'm thinking Ecclesiastes 4 is running through Jesus' mind as he does this, right? Where the reward of 2, you got it up there, thank you. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. I'm wondering if Jesus is thinking about this. And as he's splitting up these people, Because he says, you got a tough road ahead of you. And he says, I'm going to show you a few things that you're going to battle that is going to make it tough, that you need people next to you. You need people to lift you up. You need people to carry you. And guys, you know in your life, I mean, you could do things the harder way, which would be to do life alone. But each one of you, to some extent, have chosen not to do that because you're sitting here, because you're in a smaller church where your name is known. But you could choose to do life alone and choose to carry these burdens by yourself, or you can choose to partner up and get with a group of people that will truly love you and care about you. One of the things, I think, I go to Galatians 6 and I think about what Jesus, or what Paul says, carry each other's burdens. And he says, hey, stay in your guard lest you be tempted. And specifically what he's saying is to carry each other's burdens, there's sin. Confront a brother who is in sin. Help carry that burden. Guys, this is incredible, because when it comes to community groups and you're talking about issues, guys, the one thing that's not brought up is like, okay, here's my main sin of the week. I mean, that's because that's kind of weird, that's awkward. And plus we have this thought idea that if I put out what I struggle with, you may judge me and it's just going to be weird. But God says, like, this is what we do, is that we walk alongside each other who are even struggling in sin. And we say, hey, man, you can beat this. I got guys in my life. I got one guy specifically who I got to keep next to me in certain areas. And we walk next to each other and we say, you can beat this. You can have victory over this. And guys, if you're stuck in a struggle, a sin that's ongoing, a habitual sin, you need that hope. If it's a sin that you've struggled with for years on end and you cannot break free, you need someone to walk alongside you, remind you of the gospel, and remind you that it is the power of Christ that lives inside of you and that you can defeat what you're going through. Not on your own, but because of Jesus Christ who lives in and through you. I need to be reminded of that. We all need to be reminded of that. And community group leaders, I mean, you've been trained to really keep an eye on your group in those areas. And to make sure that we aren't judging people for one issue while, we are lifting people up because they're talking about other things, but that we are equipping each other to walk alongside each other. So if you fall, we need someone there next to us. That's one reason to join a community group, that we got to do community groups, because that happens in a small group setting. The second reason is there's more accomplished for the Lord when we break up into small groups. The passage goes on and says, go into every town and place where he himself was about to go. Jesus says to this 35, 36 groups of individuals, he says, go into the towns, go where I'm about to go, prepare them for me, for my coming. And guys, they're able to do it. And just a few verses later, Jesus shows us that Satan fell like lightning, that there was victory in what they were doing, that they were able to accomplish a lot more by breaking up into smaller groups. Yeah, how much does our marriage kind of resemble this? Me and my wife, we can accomplish a lot together. Me set out on my own, there's a lot of things I don't see, that I overlook, that my wife can point out for me. A chicken coop, I'm building my dad's chicken coop for him. And my thoughts are getting messed up, one of my corks, so I'm going to just stop. Back up. I'm building a chicken coop for my dad. Becky, you're not supposed to come in for like another paragraph, so you didn't even know you're coming in. Don't worry, you don't have to come up. I'm building a chicken coop for my dad, and the job is overwhelming. All right, it's about the size of the stage, and he's getting like hawks and stuff, taking his chickens, and so he's like, I need a roof. So all right, I'll put some chicken wire over it and whatever. But it's a big job, and it's all. On a ladder, up and down. He's already got the perimeter built, so I'm in and outside this chicken coop, guys. And eventually I just sit down because the job is so overwhelming. And I was like, this is going to take forever. Well, my dad saw that kind of like depression, kind of the overwhelmingness come over me. He says, let's set aside some time. Let's work together. And just him jumping in for 2 or 3 hours just really put some motivation into me. And we got a lot more done, probably 3-4 times the amount done working together than we did me working by myself. And seeing work get accomplished, I was then able to carry on work by myself and be a lot more fruitful. Now, to where I was going with my marriage, Becca and I mean, she gets my back in ways that I don't know. I mean, that I don't even realize. She was gone. This is a conclusion I've just come up to this week, is that I've got to die first. And here's why. Because if she dies first, I'll just holler, you keep those gates open because I'm right behind you. I mean, I would probably starve to death. I may dehydrate. I may not know what to wear. She was gone for a couple weeks ago. And well, outside of the massive wardrobe malfunction I had on Sunday morning because she wasn't there to critique my attire, there was this blanket on the ground on my side of the bed. Guys, I remodeled a room for her birthday. I spent until midnight, a few nights just working on this room. Dinner was like an afterthought because the food just wasn't there. And so maybe I ate, maybe I didn't. And I kept going to bed and I just couldn't sleep. It's just like something's just not right. Outside the fact that she wasn't in the bed, there was just something else missing. Well, so every morning and every night I wake up or I go to bed and there's this blanket on the ground. It's folded all nice and neat right on my side of the bed. And here's my thought is, what is this blanket doing here? I got to keep walking around it to get into bed. And I was too lazy to bend over and pick it up and put it somewhere. And so I did this for the entire week. Finally, she comes home and, whatever. She walks into the bedroom, and the first thing she looks at is the blanket. She goes, all right. She goes, Greg, she goes, how did you sleep while I was gone? It's like, eh. And she goes, we want to know why? I was like, if you could figure that out, that's pretty cool. She goes, that blanket right there. She goes, remember the last words I gave to you out leaving the house? It's like, I probably should. And she goes, remember I pulled out the blanket and I said, here's the blanket. I'm folding it. I'm going to put it on the ground. So you got to walk around it. That's going to be a reminder that you're not going to be able to sleep unless you get the blankie on you because you can't sleep without the blanket. And I'm like, oh, it all makes sense. I need her, right? I need her. I got to die first because if you go first, I'm right behind you. If I go first, you got years and years of life ahead of you because there's so much less work to do. And we need each other in life. We need each other's perspective on our issues. I need you to watch my back and you need me to watch your back. You need each other to watch each other's back. You need each other to give fresh perspective on certain circumstances in your life that you're just scratching your head at and say, why, God? Why? Why? You need each other to help answer that question of why through the scriptures and through prayer and through encouragement. But the problem is this, is when you work together close like that, we develop what I call ministry odor. Like when you're working with people and you're doing things and you're doing ministry, you develop this odor. Like, we don't want to, I said earlier, we don't want to smell each other. Like the closer you get to me, the more you realize, oh, he is sinful. Oh, he puts off a reek of odor because of he's human. And we get in our community groups and I don't want people to smell me and smell my ministry odor. And I don't want you to, I don't want to smell your ministry odor. I'm sitting there, I'm working my dad's chicken coop. I'm smelling chicken coop stuff and I'm smelling my dad and he's smelling me. And guys, but we're focused on a bigger job and our smells don't matter. So ministry odor, like my quirks, my sin, my issues, my inability to lead in a lot of ways, as they come to the surface, as you get to know me, and vice versa, you too, as your issues come to the surface, we learn to overlook them or deal with them or work with them or love you through them as we focus on a bigger picture because there's too much work to be done. There's just too much work to be done for me to stop and say, put on your deodorant. Well, maybe every once in a while, but for the most part, that's not my objective. It's for us to look all clean and nice on the outside, but for us to do the work of God, which means we're going to get smelly together. So more is accomplished when we break into small groups, which means we get closer to each other, we do work together. But also, my third reason that we should join community groups, and community groups is we have purpose for them here is, guys, is the harvest is plentiful. The harvest is plentiful. There's just way too much work to be done here. Jesus goes on and says, and in Luke 10, and he said to them, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Okay, then if we jump ahead, John, go to the next slide, verse 10. This one gets me like scratching my head. Go ahead. Do you have verse 10 up there by chance? Verse 10 and 11 that says, but whenever you enter. Here we go. It says, but what? This one I scratch my head when I read this. It says, but whenever you enter a town and they do not receive you, go into the streets and say, even the dust of your town that clings to our feet, we wipe off against you. I put those two thoughts together. And I say, man, guys, dig into Scripture yourself. Ask the Lord, what does this mean? And here's what I come up with. There's too much work for these 72 to waste their time on people who have nothing to do with God and have a hard heart against them. Jesus says, move on. He says, don't sit there and don't fight them to the death. Don't debate them until, someone cracks. He says, just wipe the dust off your feet as a sign that, even that's not worthy, and move on. Okay, we have the luxury as the 21st century church. I was talking to my wife about that last night. I was like, the math doesn't add up. As a 21st century church, to be able to slow down and spend a little bit more time with people that may be hardened towards Christ. But I think the same principle still matters. I got to say it to myself. It's great. There's just some people you move on from that will just drain you, that will be the enemy to you, that will zap your end because of this truth. The harvest is plentiful. There's just too much work to be done. There's too much work for these 72 to do. I mean, Jesus is sending out 72 people, 36 groups, and he says, hey, on your way, why don't you pray that God sends more people, because you're just going to run into too much work. He says, don't talk to anyone on the street. He says, get into the house for the person who accepts you. Get there, stay there, and focus on your work. If the town doesn't want you, if the city don't want you, the people don't want you, move on. Get on to the next one, because there's just too much work to be done. And so we could say here at Midtown, we could say, well, Greg, we need to do outreach projects as a church whole. Okay, we need to get into the community as Midtown Church and do outreach projects. And you're partly right. You're partly right. But what we cannot do is make one outreach project a year for the church our main means of outreach and check that off the box. Rather, we can do so much more outreach when we break off into community groups and we make outreach a ministry of these groups. Okay, so for example, Joyce, your group last year, it was amazing. You did Thanksgiving dinners for people in need. Okay, that was just one group, did one thing. Our group, we worked on the fellowship hall, and we focus on stuff here at the church. We have a group that's led by Terry that their main ministry is the coffee house. That's their outreach that they do on Friday nights, and it's a part of that community group ministry. And in fact, Terry, if you want to come up, I asked Terry to come up and share a little bit about her group and about the coffee house, because guys, I want you to see how we can be so much more effective as we break into smaller group. Real quick, how large is your community group? Or how small, maybe small? I should say. Okay,
it ranges, Friday nights we can have anywhere from 10 to 50 people, actually.
That's your coffee house.
The coffee house.
Your community group.
My community group, we average there's about 4 of us in the community group.
And my point being is that we don't have to be a large, small group to do outreach. So would you tell us just a little bit about your group and about the coffee house?
Okay. The coffee house, we meet on Friday. Excuse my voice. I have a cold, so it's kind of in and out. But I just want to say I'm glad that I have a voice in this church, though, as a single person, because a lot of times in churches, singles are treated like redheaded stepchildren, and we're just kind of like in the background and nobody pays attention to us. And I've been single all my life, so I've been in a lot of different churches, and I am so grateful for the church that has opened the doors to the community, and they're very grateful too that we have this ministry on a Friday night. And as a direct result from that, we have about 8 or 10 people from the coffee house that are coming to the church here. And, as the coffee house grows and the word gets out, hopefully we will have more people come to the church. But it's just a safe environment for people to come. We always have something to eat, and we play cards and have a time of fellowship. And we'd like to sort of expand it a little bit too, maybe have a movie night or have some some local bands or some, things like that. But so it's just it's a nice time of fellowship, and everybody really appreciates it. And Rocco is my right arm. So with the coffee house, so we are reaching out into the community and hoping to get the word out more. So I just thank you for opening your hearts and opening our church to the community. So
tell us a little bit about your community group. What time does that meet, and what do you do in your community group?
Okay, our community group meets at 9:30 Sunday mornings, and we discuss. Greg has a nice outline for us to discuss the message from the week before. So we discuss that, and we also, have our praises, share our praises and our struggles in life, and, through it all. And I have some very knowledgeable people of the scriptures in my group, so we have a good time of sharing the word. And we discuss that. And I had some, so we just try to become better servants of the Lord and encourage each other with our walk in the Lord.
That's awesome.
So and it's been a blessing. So I really enjoy it, and I'm enjoying the church. Thank you.
Good. No, and thank you for sharing with us. And I think was it me that got you sick? That's one example of our few community groups that's doing an active outreach project that they do weekly, but yet that's connected to a community group. And it goes back to what I was talking about our vision, is that we have two main nuggets: our worship service, our community groups, and we try to operate everything through those and out of those. Let me give you another reason to why we should be in community groups and why it's important for the church. Simply put, as we are lambs set out to wolves. And we've talked about that for the past several weeks. And Jesus uses these exact words. He says, "Go your way, behold." He says, "I am sending you out as lambs in the midst of wolves." Last time I checked a lamb, I don't check them often, but if I'm at a petting zoo, I may just look it over. They don't have fangs. They don't have claws. They don't bark or growl. They just bah. Nothing's scared of a bah. Right? Nothing's scared of them. In fact, they're so not intimidating that little babies will crawl up to them and cuddle with them. Jesus says that's what you are. You're like a lamb that people are going to want to cuddle with. Or people are going to want to eat and devour because you appear to be easy prey. Jesus says you're lambs going out into wolves. Holy cow, how much more do we need each other? Not that two lambs together could do much against a wolf, but when you are led by the authority of Jesus, where two or more are gathered, he is there, then we become powerful. But Jesus says, I got to send you out in pairs because of this fact. Because the world will want to devour you. And therefore, you need each other. And maybe you've gone through that in life. Maybe you have been through some issues, through some struggles, and people, the world, Satan wants to devour you. And you just feel helpless. And you need people to walk alongside of you, to encourage you and to strengthen you. Let me move on. Let me go to the fifth reason. God, this is a huge one. God calls us to a life of faith. Our fifth reason. Maybe God has called you to some form of ministry. Maybe in the back of your mind, you're like, man, I think God's going to have me do some work for him one day. This is what I want to do. Look at what he says in verse 4 to these 72. He says, "Carry no money bag, no knapsack, no sandals, and greet no one on the road." Jesus, are you crazy? You're telling us to go out into areas that maybe we have never been before. You're telling me to leave my wallet behind, my fanny pack behind, my sandals behind. He says, hey, on the way, don't stop and talk to people and ask them for money and food. He says, just go. Why does Jesus instruct these 72 to do that? Why? We got to have an answer to that, because the American way is not that way. When I was trained as a church planner, I was told you need to save so much money, you need to raise so much support, you need to lock in on a location. This is an unfamiliar verse when it comes to doing something like church planning. And guys, not just for these 72, but if you are a child of God, you are called to a life of faith. You're not called to a life of luxury and comfort, but a life of faith. And however that pans out, and however the Lord chooses to bless you, then so be it. Your needs are taken care of up to the day that the Lord decides, I'm not going to take care of your needs anymore. You're coming home. Every breath that you have right now, the Lord is providing. And he's saying to these 72, and he's saying to us, and I will provide every penny you need to do the work. Do we operate off of that mentality? Or do we take chances based on our savings account? Okay, to be really, what's the word? Like you can see through me, to be transparent. Thank you. I was going to say tranquil, but that's the farthest thing from my mind. Guys, we have, as Midtown Church, we are forced to live this out, okay? You have 3 people on staff. None of them make what they should make, and none of them on their own make enough to pay bills. But yet 3 people on staff that are being paid that have committed to this. Outside of that, you have a slew of volunteers, and you're probably one of them, who have decided, I'm going to commit. No pay, no nothing, to a church that is just starting, and to a vision that I can agree with, that I believe is biblical. And man, we got nothing. And guys, I'll say it, whatever. I mean, our savings account, it's pretty much like this. I mean, it's $5,000 more than it was last year, but we had to dip into that in August. We could not pay our bills in August. Okay, and talking to a pastor who like, okay, God, what are we going to do here? He's great. He says, walk by faith. Stop making decisions on how much money you have. Stop making a decision on like how well you feel about a project or I don't know, something you want to do. He says, walk by faith. This goes back to, God has designed you a specific way. Your personalities, your quirks, it may not always make sense, but when you put that into perspective, what Jesus is telling these 72, he says it won't always make sense. He says, he tells me, don't curtail who you are, Greg. He says, go and be who you are and watch me do the rest. He says to the 72, go and be yourself. Here's the mission. And oh, by the way, I'm going to prove to you that I'm going to take care of you. How much more powerful is our message of the gospel when we have a story of a testimony of what Jesus has done in our lives? Okay, these 72, they walk into a house, and every group had a house that was waiting for them, meals waiting for them. How much more powerful is their message of Jesus when they can say, look what Jesus did for me just recently? Midtown, this is what I love about our history. This is what I can say to people, our testimony. We had nothing. We started with nothing. And I look around and I look at everything the Lord has provided us with. A roof over our head, ACs that work as hard as they can, a family of believers that I love, community groups that are thriving. I mean, we got it because the Lord has provided it. And that's part of my testimony. That's part of our testimony. And I can say, you see, that's the God we believe in. And now there's substance to my message. In fact, there's not just substance, there's motivation to me telling you why I want you to believe in Jesus Christ and give your life to him and surrender everything to him. Pigtailing on that, reason number 6 is this is how God's economy works, through each other. Right? You can sit in your bedroom all day long and say, God, I'm running out of money. You've got to rain money down. Or you could get connected and with believers and you watch God take care of your needs through each other. God's economy works when believers get together. We see in Acts 2, they're selling stuff to take care of the believers that were amongst them that had nothing, that moved into their presence, and they were literally without home, without food. God primarily works in blessing, if we can use that word, blessing each other, taking care of our needs through each other. I've seen it in our community group, and I know it happens in others, where you have a need come up, be it food, be it cash, be it whatever it may be, a bill you can't pay, or just prayer, needs are met through each other. I just wonder how much more effective could the church be when we get this. When we don't just say, if you give money in the box in the back of the room, the Lord will take care of your needs. But we get the fact that the Lord take care of our needs through each other. Community groups are critical. We see that these 72, they're sitting down with other believers and they're eating what they put on the table. They're being taken care of. They're not fussing about it. They're not like, it's not the best food. It's broccoli or whatever it may be. It's lambs and I was called a lamb, whatever. They're not fussing about that. They're just seeing that their provisions are taken care of. Their needs are taken care of. And they're able to equate that to the Lord working. We got a new group. I was telling you about Thomas, Cindy, Bess. They're starting a group. Every time we have a new group start, to me that's exciting because that's another pocket of believers that are going to be ministering, that are going to be ministered to at a better level than I can do solo. So I've asked Tom and Cindy if they would come up and share a little bit about your group, just a detail, a little bit about yourself and your excitement in the group.
Thank you, Greg. I told Greg, when I think of community groups, by the way, I'm Tom, and this is Cindy. When I think of community groups, a passage of scripture that comes to mind that I memorized many, many years ago is Hebrews 10:24 and 25, which says, and let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. So as Greg has emphasized so well so far in his sermon today, community groups are vital, the vital link between our corporate worship here as we come together and in our neighborhoods where we live, where we're planted, and in making a difference among the neighbors, the people who live across the street, who live down the street. And so Cindy and I are very excited about starting a group in our home. We live in West Melbourne. Is the address in the handout that you referenced?
Your contact information is, but I don't know if the address is.
Okay. Well, we live in West Melbourne, and I don't know if you know the intersection of Eber and Hollywood, but we're about midway between US 192 and Palm Bay Road, just off Eber and Hollywood. So
We're near Walmart on Palm Bay Road.
We'd love to have folks come and join us. We're wide open right now. I think Cindy said we had one young man. Confirmed.
Woohoo! Approved.
There we go. The group has started.
And we do plan to begin this evening. And so if you'd like to join us this very evening at 6:30, come on out. Don't worry about bringing food tonight or anything like that. Cindy and I will,
Our treat tonight.
We'll make peanut butter and jelly.
You're one of those families, the awkward ones. Will they notice?
Well, actually, many years ago, Cindy and I were in a small non-denominational church in Little Rock, Arkansas. And every Sunday evening, we had some folks over to our home, and we always served peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and egg salad sandwiches. And everybody looked forward to it.
Talk about
We didn't have much money, but it was good.
So is there anything else you'd like me to talk about?
No, so you're going to be meeting Sunday nights.
Sunday nights
on a
at
weekly
6:30,
basis.
starting tonight. And I'm a football lover. Thank goodness I have a DVR. But we'll enjoy one another's fellowship. We will encourage one another, hopefully stimulate one another to love and good deeds. And then perhaps we'll enjoy a little football together for those of you who are football fans.
Would you two be willing just to hang out in the back after church? And if you're interested in joining a group, this is a prime opportunity. And check yours out tonight. So,
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Tom and Cindy, for sharing. Wait a second. Y'all didn't clap for Terry, did they? I keep track. Okay. That's right. I don't watch football. Guys, let me wrap this up. Thank you, Tom and Cindy. Thank you to all the facilitators for your ministry here at Midtown. Because it's not just what we do Sunday morning, but it really what happens throughout the week. And just very excited about our groups. And just prayerfully, hopefully the Lord has been speaking to you if you're not in one. Tom and Cindy they're a wonderful couple. They love the Lord. It'd be a great group to join, even if you got to make a trip from Melbourne down there, if you want to join a group. Lastly, guys, there's victory in numbers. I'm going to jump ahead to verse 17. It says, the 72 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Behold, I've given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subjected to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Man, that's what we need. We need that in our lives. We need Satan to fall like lightning. We need to find victory in our lives over our struggles. Guys, we need that in our church. And we need it desperately in our community. I mean, ultimately, my heart's desire is that our community groups are so effective that you're just spilling out into your neighborhoods. That the outreach you do, be it whatever, a coffee house, or inviting one person to enjoy a meal with you all, and you all just get to know that person, be it prayer walking the streets, or be it whatever it may be that your group, I think one group got a bunch of diapers for pregnancy resources, that those moments of contact with people are just, they're so overflowing with Jesus' love through you, that we as laborers begin to reap the harvest. Because community groups ain't the end of the road for us, Midtown. Community groups is just a hub to where you can come, be refreshed, be known, but then head out into the world as lambs among wolves, and to minister, to be ministers to each other, to your neighbors. I hope Midtown grows, but I hope it doesn't grow because we throw paint on a building, or because we throw up some sign, or we do some fancy events. I hope we grow because people see Jesus Christ in you, in your group, in our church, and they want that. They want Jesus, and they want the victory that they've seen you achieve in him. I say victory, what am I talking about? Victory over your sins, over your condition as a depraved human, that Jesus has set you free from your sins to live in righteousness. And that you, with all your quirks and everything about you, you can say, I'm all right because I know Jesus Christ. I don't have to sweat it anymore. Right? I don't have to sweat it. The band come up. You close us out. The last two songs. Let me close us in prayer and close with a challenge to you. If you choose not to join a group, that's your choice. That's between you and God. I mean, my desire is for you to join a group. But I got to leave the back door open and say, if the Lord said, if you say, no, it's just not my thing, it really isn't, it's just too weird, then, I'm okay with that. I am. Don't feel like you have to fit in this church or as an obligation to me as a pastor. This is between you and God. But my encouragement as your pastor is to find a group, get plugged in, and begin ministering to each other and be ministered to yourself.